everyone. Welcome back to Knit the Revolution. I'm Laura Fielding, Executive Director of Red Berets Medicare-for-All, and I'm joined by my co-host, Lisa Theobald, who is our Operations Director at Red Berets Medicare-for-All. And it is our honor and privilege today. I'm going to leave the introductions of today's topic and panel to Sakuru Force, who is lead organizer for very newly developing Cal Red Berets, but there's already lots going on. So Sakuru, if you could make the introductions today and what we'll be talking about, that would be lovely.
Yes. Thank you. So first of all, thank you, Laura and Lisa, for inviting us here on the show today. And again, my name is Tsukuru Force. We are joined by today members of PANA, Progressive Asian Network for Action, predominantly Southern California Asian Pacific Islander organizers and activists. We are a network of activists and organizers who work on actually really various issues, including healthcare justice. Correct me if I'm wrong, Taiji-san, Taiji Miyagawa. It's a peace, justice, and equality for the 99% is, the tagline that we use to describe our motto. Today, here we have Taiji Miyagawa, member and founding member of PANA. And also later, we are expecting Reggie Wong and her friend Imran to join us as well. But first of all, just kind of let me talk about like why I thought it would be wonderful to have PANA people on the panel today. PANA has been sort of my home in terms of my activism. When I started out, I don't remember, like maybe 5 years ago, as a anti-militarism and anti-nuclear activist. People of PANA really embraced me and gave me access to resources, and also pretty much taught me the ropes of activism. So I owe a lot to PANA, and but besides that, PANA is a collective of very, very dedicated organizers and activists, and especially in the area of promoting CalCare AB 1400, they've been doing a lot, and I actually was sort of like a ghost member of their healthcare committee, but I frankly was in the beginning very intimidated by my lack of knowledge, so I couldn't really join the conversation. But I was kind of sitting on the sideline and kind of observing what was happening, and it's just really remarkable what they do. So one of the things I really wanted to highlight and bring it to the foreground today was really PANA's effort to amplify the API, Asian Pacific Islanders voice, and really highlight our concerns, our unique concerns and issues that we have around healthcare. And they do fantastic job to raise awareness of the fact that AB 1400 really addresses the cultural competency piece. Yesterday, actually, I was on another panel for LGBTQ plus issues and how AB 1400 addresses the LGBTQ piece. And I actually was educated on the cultural competency piece as well. So, LGBTQ people, we have a lot of concerns around healthcare, and also frankly, fear around the healthcare. Whether or not we'll be treated without discrimination, whether our healthcare providers understand, our concerns. All of that in AB 1400, I learned yesterday that there's a funding to make sure that healthcare providers achieve that cultural competency. So anyway, without further ado, that's kind of all I have to say as a context. So since Taiji-san's here, I would just love to like pass the mic and let him introduce himself, I guess.
Well, my audio is okay on your end. That's enough. Thanks for having me, everybody. This is a kind of a fun new experience, meeting new people and getting, support from a new group like the Red Berets. And, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build a movement from the bottom, right? And we know that the majority of people are not getting the health services and care that they need. I mean, go on down to us as individuals, extended out through our families, extended out through our co-workers working in the gig economy that have no benefits, extend it to your neighbors, extend it to all of the unhoused people whose homes you walk by on the sidewalk in downtown LA, across Southern California. It's criminal. I mean, that something as basic as someone getting sick, which is part of being alive, right, can't get the health care they need. And if they do pursue the health care they need, sometimes sending their family into a state of fiscal bankruptcy, right?
Yes.
So the question on the table, which I think just to add on to Tsukuru's nice context setting, is that it's a question of how do we build a grassroots movement that's strong enough to contend with existing established political power, right? So that would be people in political office that are able to make decisions about how public funds are already allocated, right? And how to establish regulations that can put a rein on private interests so that those private interests don't, completely undermine the public interest, right? And what's in the interest of the public good. And that's pretty much the question on the table that runs into. And now for PANA and other groups that members work in and different circles that we work in, we're advocating the need to fight for full equality. And so it's a very general term, but it basically means taking a side on a stance on the side of people who are human beings but aren't being treated equally as such. So that would include, obviously, like Tsukuru said, LGBTQ community members, and also people that look like me or variations of me, African American people, Haitian people, probably most recent immigrants that don't speak English. I mean, there's all kinds of discrimination in this country, right? And the point is, it's motivated by greed. A lot of that discrimination. There isn't like members of these companies are necessarily Klan members, Ku Klux Klan members, although some of them might be sympathetic. They're not necessarily active in openly white supremacist fascist organizations, but the pursuit of profits and the structuring of healthcare as it is right now, it basically forces a situation where discrimination is inevitable, because things like servicing of Medi-Cal patients, where the state payouts to operators of facilities, healthcare facilities, might take in Medi-Cal patients or consider taking them in, it's not a very profitable thing to do. So if you're concerned about satisfying your shareholders and making your company quarterly profit goals, you probably don't want to emphasize a lot of Medi-Cal patients, because the state doesn't really pay much for Medi-Cal patients. So in other words, discrimination is incentivized when we understand that the majority of Medi-Cal patients in California are oppressed nationality people, right? So that's how you have the racism is baked into the system. And then you have people going, oh, I don't want to talk about racism. I don't want to talk about that stuff, right? Well, then you're not really dealing with reality, right? And answering that some of my best friends are Black people isn't going to fix the problem either, right? I mean, we've got to get to the fundamental reason why people aren't getting the healthcare services that they need. And I think that circling back to this issue of how do we build a movement that's strong enough to contend with the status quo, that the issue of equality is in my opinion essential, because we're not going to build that broad, diverse political grassroots movement if we don't address all of the like various substrata issues that are going on, and a lot of that includes inequality. It's not the only thing, but a lot of that is inequality, and we're not going to engage those communities that have the most to gain from the winning of something like AB 1400 unless we address those things, because you have to remember there's whole sectors of society that have been disengaged in a political process after generations. We're talking hundreds of years of disenfranchisement from the political system, right? That was what the overthrow of Reconstruction was about. The overthrow of Reconstruction in the South was to make sure that even though the Civil War was ended, that Black people would not have a role to play in the political decision-making process. That's what the overthrow of Reconstruction was. So there's generations of cynicism. There's generations of not just cynicism, but an appraisal that the system is not set up for certain people. And so people voluntarily choose to disengage, right? In terms of like the electoral system, right? It's not that they're engaged from everything else, because some of those same people might be leaders at a co-op, a workers' co-op in their community. They might be leaders of like an urban farm in Detroit, So it's not like they're disengaged. It's just that they've chosen to turn away from a political system that hasn't met their needs, and politicians who just lie through both sides of their face, right? So our challenge is to, engage the majority of people who we know will gain from Medicare-for-All, but we have to get them into the arena of voting these crooked corporate-owned politicians out of office. That's pretty much the short end of it, barring more extreme measures that also may become assessed as being necessary by the majority once they engage in this process.
That was amazing. And just went through. You're speaking my language.
Trying to. It's hard. It's hard to get through. I mean, right now, the Medicare-for-All movement that we're all a part of is, I would say, if you took a snapshot of it nationally, it would come across as being mostly a white people thing, which is nuts, right? Because again, along what I'm saying, it's like, yes, the majority of white people need Medicare-for-All, abso-fucking-lutely, right? I mean, there's no question about it, right? The polling that runs the support for AB 1400 includes a lot of white people on both sides of the aisle, right? So there's no question about it, but it doesn't have the juice. And a lot of that's because we're not expanding our vision of what we are as human beings, right? If that vision is only white people, it ain't going to include like millions, tens of millions of people, right? And that's what we need. So, we have to look at past movements and what happened. I mean, the civil rights movement, it wasn't just for Black people. Of course, mainly it was, off of somebody being discriminated on the public bus, right? That's where it all started. But I mean, it was much greater than that. It elevated the level of our concept of what it means to be a human being in relationship to other human beings who might look differently than us, and the majority of people took a stand on the side of, winning democratic rights for Black people. And that kind of lifted the boats for everybody. Then while Asian people were able to vote now all of a sudden, right? Latino people were able to vote all of a sudden. It's easier to talk about the women's suffrage movement and, defending the women's right to vote, etc. So, you lift the people on the bottom and it tends to lift everything up. It tends to elevate the level of humanity for everybody, not just that one specific group. And people don't quite understand that, right? They think it's like, quote unquote, identity politics, special interests. It's like, when you go into that realm, you're basically starting to go into the realm of saying Black people aren't human beings, I mean, right? People facing inequality are lesser humans. So we don't really need to give them special attention. No, we do need to give them special attention because it's specifically those people that are being ignored, that are being purposely dismissed and not being taken care of. So I think the Medicare for All movement has a weakness right now. It's not really addressing the all part of the slogan, right? It's Medicare for blank, but it's like if you don't deal with the all part and all of the details within that, then that means you're skipping over a bunch of stuff, right? And if you're skipping over a bunch of stuff, that means you're leaving a lot of people out. And I say this as an Asian American activist because let me tell you, when we've done these events trying to highlight and center the inequalities faced by Asian communities in the healthcare system, I've had to learn a lot because the majority of Asian Americans right now are immigrants, and they're immigrants that came here in the last like 40 years or so. So they're like really new to this country, and most of them don't speak English, right? So I think like most Asian Americans that have been born here already are, to be quite sincere, are as ignorant about some of these new Asian and Pacific Islander populations that have come here as your, whitest of white middle class, people who never eat Asian food. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just I'm saying like we cannot like as PANA say that we're fighting for equality for Asian people and we don't even understand our own communities, right? Or we only understand one or two or three of them. It's such a diverse name that we use for political expediency. It's a tactic, right, to unify people that have some cultural commonalities, but it's not that simple, right? And in a microcosm kind of way, it's sort of what I'm trying to talk about in the big picture. I mean, we're focused on doing it in the Asian and Pacific Islander communities, and just from our own work, I mean, I could tell you it's not easy to do. But if you don't engage in the work at all, nothing's going to move forward. So the PANA example, I think, is a good one. We're trying to do this on multiple fronts. We've also taken part in a campaign to defend Japanese American bilingual bicultural facilities that were established by the Japanese American community over 50 years ago in response to the lack of equality in healthcare, right? Because there were no bilingual services available for Japanese American seniors who spoke Japanese, members of my parents' generation sacrificed even their home mortgages. They put their own homes at risk. They went to Japan to do fundraising. They, just built a giant united front within the community to establish these a network of these facilities that provided quality bilingual bicultural care to my grandparents' generation and more recent Japanese immigrants. And we're trying to win them over to supporting AB 1400 because our community doesn't have the money it needs to rebuild a facility that we control. Right now, the one that I was referencing was sold by the nonprofit that used to run it, was sold to an international real estate developer. So you can imagine what kind of compassion we're getting from that company regarding the care of our seniors right now. Over 80 of them were recently evicted from an intermediate care facility, and that facility was the only facility of its kind that offered that level of care in the country. So they've been dispersed to facilities that don't have Japanese speaking staff, that don't serve Japanese food, and it's a problem. And we think AB 1400 is the best vehicle to turn to because it would provide the public financing we need to not only possibly continue the services that exist in a now privately owned facility, but would allow us to explore the possibility of building new ones, right? That could have bilingual cultural care in the communities where they exist. So, yeah. So I'll stop rambling. I've rambled a lot, and Reggie's on board. So,
Hi, Reggie. Yes. Reggie Wong joined us. Yeah. I well, Okay, so obviously she's another PANA member. Really, I don't know. What can I say about Reggie? She is just such a dedicated, powerful, no nonsense activist that I really admire. Um, and I'll just like I'll just let her speak for herself, I guess.
Hey, am I on?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, I became an activist because of Medicare for All, basically. Yeah, CalCare. How did I get into Medicare for All? I've watched too many of my friends die. Okay. I recently had a friend. Shout out to Ebron Rao. He's recovering from some emergency surgery. He was when I knew him in like 2015 or 2014, he had a hernia, and he worked full time as a security guard, but his position did not offer him any benefits. So his hernia went untreated until now, until like a few days ago, when the pain was so bad he had to go to the hospital and have emergency surgery. Okay, so Imran is part South Asian. He's Pakistani. And it's like everybody thinks that Asian Americans, oh, we're the model minority. So we have everything. We're affluent. So it's okay to rob us, okay? That it's okay to direct violence towards us, okay? What do you think, Taiji? We are, we're so affluent, we're such model minorities. We even have healthcare. When Korean Americans are like some of the largest populations not having medical care. Yeah. So also I want to add, I had a friend, I saw another friend who worked full-time as a security guard, got cancer when he got cancer when he was working full-time, and they neglected to give him any benefits. Eventually got Medi-Cal, but by then it was too late and he passed away a year later. So yeah, that pissed me off. That really pissed me off. And I got into Bernie, and through Bernie, I got into Asian American APIs for Bernie. That led to, we became PANA. And then when we heard about the violence against Asians last year, I mean, I'm used to violence against Asians. I grew up with racism. Okay. I grew up with racism. I grew up with the taunting. I grew up with the slurs. I grew up with getting beat up on my way home from school. Okay. And, so it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I kind of expected it. A Nazi is in the White House and he's getting Nazis running around saying all these anti-Asian things to my people. But when that shooting in Atlanta happened, that really hit it home for me. And we had to do something. And there was this girl named Nancy Kim, and she was pissed off about it. And she heard about patrols going on to, Asians with attitudes. A number of different grassroots groups. I mean, us Asians, you all say we're passive. A bunch of us started our own grassroots thing. And we saw these other grassroots people getting out there and patrolling. Well, we don't want to say patrolling because we don't like the cops. Okay. But as a matter of fact, our purpose is to make sure the cops don't get involved, okay? Because we know what happens, nothing good. So we started the Neighborhood Safety Companions in Koreatown, and every Thursday night from 7 to 9, we walk through parts of Koreatown that we've heard were problematic. Recently, it's 5th and Western, where there was an attack a few months ago on a 70-year-old Korean man. And we heard the suspect was released on his own recognizance and still wandering around. So we do that, but along our routes, we will do things. We will hand out items to the unhoused. We see a lot of that out there. We do make contact. We do offer self-defense items to employees who work in Koreatown, because they work long hours and they have to walk home in the dark, and they always give us stories about being attacked, being mugged, and And Taiji, if you look at the chat, well, Taiji's got a bunch of really good statistics here. 2018, 25% of Korean Americans and 20% of Vietnamese did not have health insurance. So Obamacare, otherwise known as the ACA, it helped lower these numbers, but approximately, but we still got so many Korean Americans remaining uninsured. So, we always, like all this year, we've been talking about, violence on the streets against Asians. What about the systemic violence against Asians in healthcare disparities against people of color? It's always been there. I do know some people of color that are, they don't want to get the vaccine. And it's not because they sympathize with fascists. It's because the medical establishment has screwed them over so many times. It's like, how can they rely on what, who do you rely on? Who can you trust? By the way, I did get my booster vaccination this on Friday. I'm not going to wait. I'm not going to take any chances. Our people, we do believe in wearing. We do believe in wearing masks for the public good. We do believe in doing what we can to help protect the public. Including, if we have to, we will raise the money, to buy personal alarms, pepper sprays, what have you. We'll band together and we'll protect our own community. At the end of the day, we protect us, and that's proven. I think a lot of activists can resonate with that. Because at the end of the day, the Democrats aren't going to listen to you. The Republicans certainly aren't going to listen to you. They'll do anything to oppress you. And you can't really expect people who aren't, you just can't really expect people who haven't lived your experience to really know what you're going through. Straight up. Okay. I wish I could explain racism. I wish I could tell you how it feels. Even as a little kid getting one little slur, what it feels like. And it feels like sometimes it feels like a punch in the gut, but I don't think you could really understand the full enormity of it, the pain of it, until you've been there, until somebody hates you or somebody wants to ridicule you just because of who you were born as. Let's see. Other things that I do besides NSC, PANA, of course, I stand for Bernie all the way, even especially in 2020. I was one of his field organizers, and I also I'm with the food bank because we started Long Beach Community Table. We started it because in 2016 we knew we were going to get screwed. So figured we needed some big mutual aid sort of organization to help our community. And also with the kids, 2017, it's a grassroots group from San Pedro that goes down to Tijuana to help out needy kids there because they don't have like a lot of the social nets, social services nets that we do. It's a little worse. It's not like it's great here, but yeah, it's pretty bad down there, especially with refugee kids. A lot of kids there fleeing some sort of violence or another. Any other questions? Do you want anything?
So I just want you to describe, it sounds like you're interacting with a lot of your community individuals, and you have a lot of outlets. If you've got food bank going on and you have these community watches, are you doing education on healthcare? Do you have forums for that? And
absolutely.
Okay.
We just did Taiji mention a couple weeks ago, we just did a workshop for the Koreatown community regarding AB 1400. We even got a couple of translators. We got speakers from different communities, Korean, Chinese, Thai. We also did another event in July as well. That was over the Zoom one, right? Right, Taiji? Yeah.
Okay.
Taiji, can you care? Because Taiji was a big factor in this. He has helped with so much with the tech, getting speakers. He knows so much of the community. He knows, he has pointed us to resources we didn't know about, and he's really, woken us up to issues we were never really aware about until, we met Taiji.
May I pause just 1 second? And I would like to ask Shane if he can see the link that Taiji has placed in here in our private chat, and if it's possible to put that up on the YouTube viewer screen, the healthcare for APIs. Be lovely if that link could get put up for our audience. And quickly, just also want to read what Taiji has also put in this chat for our viewers. The leading cause of death for Asian Americans age 25, 24 is suicide. Filipino teenage girls top the list, yet Asian Americans overall are the most underserviced demographic in the U.S. in terms of accessing mental health services. And I feel, this is something we especially need to, we've started to educate people, 15 to 24, typo. Yeah, I should have. So ages, Asian Americans aged 15 to 24, the leading cause of death is suicide. And this speaks to how we need to lift up these kind of horrendous, they're not just numbers, they're human casualties of this violent for-profit system. And also, just needing to include in the messaging, mental health care is a human right. It would be covered when we pass a national single payer system, or in the case of what we're talking about today, AB 1400 CalCare. We absolutely have to put that messaging out. So on to you, Taiji. Thank you for those numbers.
Yeah, just another point that Reggie didn't mention. Think about it. When an Asian senior gets beat up in the street, their head busted open and they're bleeding, maybe with a concussion, right? They need medical service at that point, okay? Never mind the racism and the mental illness that's out there in the street that causes people to go nuts and initiate this kind of level of horrific violence on people based upon only the way they look. Once it happens, what do we do about it? A lot of these people that are getting hit are working class. They might be undocumented and they might not speak English. So think about all the barriers they're going to face, right? And we didn't even mention finances. They might not have healthcare insurance. So if you follow the anti-Asian violence issue at all and happen to glance at any of the news articles that hit, which aren't as frequently now as they were when it was trendy, but it's still going on. Believe me, it is still going on. We can testify to that from in-person interviews in Koreatown. You'll see a lot of the families putting up GoFundMe pages to cover the medical care, costs for their loved ones that just got pulverized on the subway, right, or whatever. I mean, it's like horrifying on top of horrifying, right? You can't walk down the street and feel any level of safety if you're Asian American in the U.S. right now. It's like open season, right? And there's like the liberal Asians that are making a deal about getting things declared a hate crime. Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, if you want to have the criminal charges and it be, couched as a hate crime, that's fine, but in the meantime, we got this, 84-year-old Thai man that's in a coma and his family can't pay for his medical care, right? So that's kind of an extreme case of how our anti-Asian violence work directly ties into something like AB 1400. On the one hand, on the front side, we're trying to promote community safety as an alternative to racist policing, right, that kills our brown and black brothers and sisters, right, in the street. But on the other side, once the violence happens, we're trying to get like healthcare to our people. It's similar to the environmental justice thing, right? The environmental justice activists are saying, hey, our communities are located right across the freeway from the, the polluting refinery in Torrance, right? But now, even though they have like a higher incidence of lung disease, they're underinsured, and their medical coverage, even if they have the bronze package of California care, it really doesn't cover a lot of the longer term, medical care that they need, right? So I think the anti-Asian violence is a pretty graphic demonstration of the kind of healthcare reform we need, because the need for healthcare is exacerbated because of the long list of inequalities that exist in America. Discrimination in housing, right? Discrimination in education, discrimination in wages and jobs, right? The proximity of oppressed nationality communities being near the most toxic, environmentally toxic environments, right? These all exacerbate the healthcare issues and make it even more important that these communities win a major reform like AB 1400.
And Taiji, did you mentioned like how people are probably going to need like mental health care after the trauma of a hate crime,
right?
And it certainly would help if we had culturally sensitive, bilingual, bicultural care in mental health services, because it is a stigma in our community, and also especially in senior care. You're putting a senior citizen. You probably mentioned it before with SOS. Just you're in an unfamiliar environment. You're away from your family. It would help a lot more to have somebody speak your language, and serve you the food that you're accustomed to, and observe the holidays that you're used to observing, and just being able to know why you follow certain customs. I think I hear this from every other ethnic group. Most of Western medicine is tailored to white people, Caucasian people, So, if you don't have, doctors, nurses, other personnel who know about various customs, or just know that not everybody is going to look through things through a Western European Christian Judeo point of view, you're not going to reach a lot of patients.
Yeah, and in the Save Our Seniors thing, just to echo what Reggie was saying, it's been educational for a lot of English speakers that are part of the campaign. If you don't speak the language that the medical staff speak, how do you communicate your medical condition, right? I mean, I have this pain in my lower right side, and the doctor wants to know, okay, he sees your hand waving around that part of your torso, right? But what exactly is it? Is it a broken rib cage bone, or is it like cancer in the liver, right? Like, what is it, right? Like, okay, the doctor's going to want to know things like, is it a sharp pain? Is it a dull pain? Or, right? And you can't even like understand the doctor's question or the nurse's question. So that's a major issue. But Reggie touched upon it. What isn't talked about is cultural appropriateness, right? Like maybe touching is different in one culture than another culture, right? Maybe food, like she says, if the facility, senior care, nursing home facility is only serving frozen hot dogs and pizza on their menu, and really, really bad frozen vegetables, right, that don't have any flavor, etc., and none of the food is the food that you used to cook in your household or you grew up with, you might not eat as much of it, right? And then now we start getting into nutritional intake issues, right? And your family's not visiting you that much, right? Because of COVID restrictions. They're not even letting families visit, right? So you're like, 87, you're isolated. You can't get around that much on your own. Their staff to patient ratio is really bad. They're not taking people out on walks anymore. You're sitting in your, room, and you're getting kind of lonely, right? And your spiritual condition is starting to go downhill. Other people on Sundays, they get to go to the nursing home chapel and get a nice Christian sermon or something, right? If you're Buddhist and you speak Japanese, maybe that's not happening. So what's happening to your spiritual life, right, at that point, right? And you can go on the list for any other culture group, right? So a lot of these sort of, this term culturally appropriate services, I think most Medicare for All activists haven't even thought about it. They haven't even thought about it because it's not an issue for them or their family if they're coming from 5 generations of English speakers, right? Most medical schools train English speakers, not people that speak Hindi or Bangladeshi, or right, or some other African language, right? So, a lot of the healthcare facilities in LA, they rely on the fact that they have underpaid bilingual Spanish-speaking staff, and they use those staff and exploit them to fill the gaps. Hey, I got the Spanish-speaking, Mexican lady over here. Can you bring that nurse, what's her name? Esteban or whatever, to come translate, right? That's what happens a lot, So if you're a Spanish speaker in Southern California, you kind of get lucky because there's like a dearth of low underpaid bilingual Spanish-speaking staff, and not the case for other multilingual healthcare workers. So the whole infrastructure needs to be developed from the educational system on down into the medical services chain, where we have culturally people that are skilled with culturally appropriate tools to execute the healthcare to communities that currently aren't getting it.
I just want to say this. It's still really hard for me to comprehend how the medical system knows that they're going to treat people of various cultural and ethnicities. And yet, you're absolutely right. I never, when I go into a hospital or an ER, very rarely do you come across doctors, and doctors are busy, but staff people at the administrative desks that are diverse enough to handle any of the cultural norms in the communities that service those hospitals, especially, like the trauma centers that are in big cities and things like that, where you're going to get a lot of people from all over because it's a trauma center. I'm just thinking about it now, and I can't honestly say that there was any diversity in any established hospital or hospital system that I've been to that serviced that. And it's really mind-blowing to me, because they know they're going to need that. And it's got to be, shame on the medical systems, but I know where that's going, because now they're all run by these corporations that Taiji was so articulate speaking to earlier. And when I worked I did work the census this past decennial, and it became very apparent very quickly that, all of the people who had low response rates, because we tried to do the census online, they were all the minority communities. They were all the immigrants that were coming in. But the census did a fabulous job of, telling us what the populations were that we were going to need to service. And, I hired people from where they lived that were in those ethnicities. And, we found people who spoke those languages so that we were sure to be able to utilize them to hire those people. So if the government can do it, certainly the medical profession and those operations should be able to do something about that. It's expected to me, and I just can't understand it, because it's not like it's new. It's hard to comprehend, and I know that the Black community has been very underserved in this same way. They're not heard. I was just watching the International Women's Forum that Savvy Savs did yesterday, and and those folks are speaking English, right, in this country. I know that there are people from Sub-Saharan Africa and all over the place that are coming that they find themselves in those situations too. But I never actually thought about the fact that when was the last time I ever saw an interpreter being called in a hospital? I can't say I ever have.
The great thing about AB 1400 that I don't think a lot of the AB 1400 proponents are talking about is that if you look at the Washington bill, right, in the state of Washington, they've gone through one round of experimenting with the failed public option proposal that a lot of liberals and mainstream corporate Democrats are still trying to shove down our throats. Study the Washington model and why the public option is set up to fail. That's one of the best real world examples. In New York State, there is also a push for Medicare-for-All for the state system. But California, we're the only ones that have a bill that explicitly addresses these issues of inequality. It's the only one. Jayapal's bill in the House doesn't have it either, as far as I know. Doesn't have the language calling for multilingual, culturally appropriate healthcare, right? So this bill, you know how they talk about how Canada, one province won it and then it went national? Well, the same thing if we could win it in California, but more significantly, our bill is better than any other bill that's been presented historically because it is truly one that is addressing everybody, not just some people. So, and I think a lot of people haven't read the language and they haven't read how the multilingual and culturally appropriate aspect is mentioned multiple times. It's very significant.
My next
Actually,
study.
I really appreciate this because, you know, being on the board of Whole Washington and potentially, you know, I think we're in the process of determining whether we will keep the current iteration of the bill, but certainly like we'll be looking at introducing a new ballot initiative, and it's an opportunity for me to share this interview and certainly take it to our initiative writing committee and ask that we include this in the whole Washington legislation and include the language. It's really, really important. So I really appreciate that. I wonder, you recently, PANA did an event in kind of in support. Wasn't there a car caravan recently that you went out and did in support of, or you're shaking your head?
No, we've done a ton of things. And the thing is, our members are really active. So maybe a few of us were in the car caravan, but a few of us do. Wait a minute. We did, I think there was maybe a caravan. We've done so many caravans. It all blends together. We've done so many marches, caravans. And the thing is, when you get into something like Medicare for All, you also get into environmental justice because, you know, if your environment is toxic, it's going to affect your health. Taiji, do you remember our latest caravan or anything like that? I know we've done some for, you know, keeping seniors in their homes.
Yeah, I mean, we've a lot of the PANA members, they piggyback onto the California Nurses Association efforts. So the CNA will have phone banking, you know, car caravans and things like that. If you go to the PANA homepage, it's basically a lot of the stuff on there for taking action are basically piggybacking on the CNA lobby efforts. So definitely. But like Sakuru mentioned, we have people that are ADEMs, right? So they're active in trying to like pass planks, progressive agenda planks within the Democratic Party state platform to try to influence people that way. We have people that hit up their local city councils around a lot of the issues, right? Our members are involved in different groups like Healthcare-for-All Los Angeles that was able to win the city council vote to support AB 1400, second largest city in the country. That's pretty good, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of different fronts that we're on. I would say that The heavy lifting, though, is this work to educate people about healthcare inequality and to engage people who.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I'm gonna contact IG on our signal, like, hey, dude, you're frozen. But no, everything Taiji said. We have our members are active. We're very diverse, and we are involved with ADEMS. We're involved with the State Democratic Party. We've been working with CNA, working closely with the Nurses Association. What can Taiji do to get unfrozen?
I
I
Yay.
think he's, yeah. Oh,
We spoke too soon.
Damn it!
I just want to say one thing before we part, though, because I think we are approaching the top of the hour. So, thank you so much for Taiji and Reggie to come on the show, because really, I mean, this suggestion of having PANA people on the show came out of my hunger, my thirst of like wanting to hear more Asian Pacific Islander perspective in healthcare justice issue, because trying to organize in sort of like a mainstream Medicare for all activism space for the past several months, I felt, I really clearly saw that this conversation was really lacking. The Asian, and it's not only Asian, but I'm just stating, for example, Asian, because I am Asian. Asian unique concerns and issues that we have about healthcare is really rarely talked about in the mainstream healthcare justice space. So I just wanted to create this forum so that maybe like within this like short time of an hour, some of it can be heard, and then this will be kind of like a stepping stone to educate the larger public or start the discussions, and and how we can include more so-called minorities, and how we can amplify each other's voices. So yeah, really appreciate that, because I can't really as eloquently, I can't speak as eloquently as Taiji and Reggie on these topics. So thank you.
Sakura, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. That was very eloquent.
Yes,
And
it
I want to
was.
thank you. And you know what? Activists who are not Asian should listen to you, and or who are not people of color should listen to you and follow your advice. And the thing is, if you're gonna like say, oh, I'm fighting Asian violence, you should consult an Asian and ask what do they want, because I've seen it happen in like Manhattan Beach. They said, oh, we want to fight Asian violence, so we're gonna have some little chalk art kind of deal. And it's like, wow, really? We're gonna have an Asian violence rally, and we're gonna invite a white police chief to speak. There was this in Manhattan Beach by the South Bay Cares or Karens, whatever the hell what they want to call themselves. And it's like, wow, really? And I said, hey, this is not cool. We don't want these kind of solutions. And it's like, oh no, they just shut me out. It's like, wow. I spoke about white supremacy at a rally and they just shut me out. So Manhattan Beach, you suck. So yeah, I'm going to use my forum to say that. But no, seriously, there are a lot of Asian activists. We're not passive. As you can see with this movement against the violence, we will organize when our community is under attack. We'll do what it takes to protect our community. And, there were some Asians, they weren't really aware of the discrepancies before, but now they're getting to see more of the systemic racism. They're awakening to it, and they're probably going to address it, and they're addressing the needs of other communities as well. So, it's, don't think that we're passive. We'll do, we're going to find a solution to things. And if the system isn't going to present us a solution, we'll find it. We'll have to work our way around it. At the end of the day, we protect us.
Thank you so much.
But thank you for giving me us a platform. Oh wait, Taiji,
Just
do you
real
wanna
quick,
say-
just real quick to circle back on what I was saying at the beginning while I silenced my phone. The PANA, if you look at the links that I had put in the chat earlier, you look at the PANA events we had, just as an example, right? I mean, a lot of people aren't doing the work to dig deep, and a lot of it just starts out real simple, getting stories from people, right? If you listen to what people have to say about their experiences, that's where the illumination of disparities happens, right? So a lot of it's just taking that extra step to reach out to somebody and have them share, and providing a platform for them to do that nobody else is providing, and then just listening. I mean, it's that simple. But it's amazing how very few Medicare-for-All activists are doing this. I mean, they won't cold call the pastor at the church that they drive by every day on their way to work, right? It's in their own neighborhood. They've never had a conversation. Hey, do a lot of people in your congregation have issues with healthcare insurance or whatever, right? They don't have that conversation. And then those are the people we need to bring in, right? And that's the small little step that everybody needs to make.
We all do, absolutely. And so I just want to extend where I'm not ending us just yet, I'm saying I want to make sure that you all feel that you have a platform here on Knit the Revolution. Anytime that you want to DM myself or Lisa is 50 lines only on Twitter. Obviously, you just are in communication with Sukuru. Just please let us know anything. If there are people that want to come on and share their healthcare story, you want to do another specific show that's, members of the community of PANA coming on to specifically share their healthcare stories, we can do that. You have an event coming up that you want to amplify, reach out and just so know you have a home here, you could come. And also too, we recently, the Red Berets, we're starting to put a little bit more structure, but we want to remain, again, as bottom up, grassroots as possible. So we haven't wanted to put a lot of structure, besides that there's a lot of structure in a red beret, but we really want to empower all these creative people to come together and to lift up all of the voices. And the red thread, as we sometimes call it, is connecting people together. But recently we did a national art and craft in that Sukuru came to, and it was 3 hours and it went by so quickly. It was really just this lovely round table of people sharing and us creating art and knitting and crocheting berets together. And so each of us are kind of going to be looking at creating our own events, whether they be, some of them will be online events and some of them maybe in-person events, but also kind of just want to say that Sukuru will probably be thinking about doing an event through the Red Berets, and we would certainly love to come and knit and crochet and learn and listen more how we can amplify and help the PANA community. So that's another idea that I have. And let's go around and make sure everyone gets some final thoughts in here, because we don't have a hard stop limit. So please take a minute to share anything else that you want to with the audience today.
Reggie?
Okay, first of all, follow us on Instagram, Neighborhood Safety Companions, all one word. You'll see some of our efforts. It's all public safety. What is it? Public safety equity. Public health equity.
Okay.
Or no, is that the right one, Taiji?
No, you're muted.
Taiji, you're muted.
I think it's public health equality, right?
Oh yeah, public health equality, also on Instagram, one word. I want to thank you guys again for giving us a platform to speak in our own words, unadulterated. We don't want other people telling our stories. We want to tell our own stories. Stories are important. They document our experiences with systemic racism and our struggles to overcome it. yeah, but just want to like thank all the activists that have listened to us and allowed us to share our stories, share our experiences, and to tell other activists, hey, you know what? There are Asians out there who have shown up for other causes. You know, and it would have been nice if you showed up for us. You know, we showed up for you, but okay, whatever. I guess we don't count. So,
But
thanks, Lisa.
you do count, and I think that's really important. And you know, even if people don't understand this, like you speak about your food bank and you speak about, reaching out to your community and how you're doing that, sharing that kind of information just in your stories that you told today, picking up on that, gives other activists some ideas around how to do it. Because it's very difficult sometimes for people to conceptualize, how do I get into a community? And going into those community organizations that are distributing food, distributing services, whatever that might be, that's how you connect. That's how you develop reach. You develop uh, alliances with those associations, and that's how you socialize all of it. And it's something that once you get your arms around, oh yeah, right? Because that's in every community. It culturally it's going to vary, but people in that community are going to know how to do it. So I think it's beautiful that we did this with PANA, and I hope you come back. I really hope you come back. I hope you take it to heart that you have an open forum here. We'd love to have you back, because I don't think that we can platform this enough, truthfully.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. Oh, and shout out to Long Beach Community Table. And we serve a lot of Asians there too. So yeah, so much for your model minority. Hi, G.
Yeah, thanks for having us. I kind of said my little spiel about the taking the stories and providing platforms of it. I will say this: tactically, we're in a tough situation because the way things are set up right now, we have to win the vote in the Assembly Health Committee, and we only have like maybe about 7 weeks to, sufficiently lobby the votes in that committee, California Assembly Committee on Health, to get that bill advanced to Committee on Appropriations. Very difficult, especially when we know that the chairperson, Jim Wood, is not exactly a friend of single payer. So, today we talked mostly about the nuts and bolts of engaging people that have the most to gain from passage of AB 1400, those that have faced inequality, discrimination, things. But it's a lot of work, to reach them. And then the other side of it is the practical reality, as we have a corporate democratic supermajority that doesn't support us, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to somehow put those two together between now and second week of January to pressure those elected officials enough to where they at least squirm, a little bit, that maybe their seat isn't secure if they don't at least give us lip service. I mean, come on, passing the bill to the next committee isn't passing the bill. You guys will still have a chance to kill it on the floor, right? But at least let us extend the conversation, you know what I mean, to the next level. And that's where tactically we're at right now. So that's why PANA's homepage is basically a take action, because we need take action now. And the event we had at Emmanuel, just circling back to what Lisa was referencing, we had about, I think, 15 to 20 seniors that came from an apartment that was an apartment we came across during the Neighborhood Safety Companions Walk, and we rented a van and we shuttled them over to the event, and we had Korean translation. Our friends thankfully volunteered to do translation. And these are people that they didn't know anything about AB 1400, right? But we got them to sign on to, doing whatever work to support it. So that's kind of what it's about. That's the heavy lifting that we need to do between now and January. But thank you so much for giving us this platform and listening to some of the work we've done. Hopefully, again, it's just an example to consider for how we can extend this work and build the movement. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, I will definitely be sharing your homepage and continue to check in on Twitter, which is really the primary platform that I'm on. But I will intermittently be checking to see what I can amplify and retweet and share from your homepage. Thank you so much for joining us today, and Sukuru for putting this lovely idea and panel forward to be heard. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. It was an honor.
Thank you. No, thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Red Berets for CalCare. Let's go,
Yep.
baby. For
Yes.
Go, go, go.
Yeah,
guys.
thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Taichi, and thank you, Reggie, and also thank you, Laura and Lisa, for having us. And I mean,
Sure.
going forward, yeah, as Taichi said, we have like very, very tight timeline for AB 1400. So Cal Red Berets actually is supporting Car Caravan on January 8th. HCLA, we are joining forces. And also we are hosting like letter writing campaign. It'll be like virtual letter writing parties to write a letter basically to Governor Newsom and also your assembly members.
And
So yeah, we are going to Red Berets function. Laura and Lisa inspired me, but yeah, we see ourselves supporting like any movement around Medicare for all or state initiatives. So we will put our resource in. We will put our whatever the power that we have, little resources that we have in promoting to win healthcare for all. So thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah, and I noticed that you're doing an Action Network letter writing campaign, but that's something that you need to get to Californians. That's not something that we want everybody out here doing for you guys. But maybe we can talk about this a little bit more another time and figure out how to actually give you hands to help, even if it's phone banking or something.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome. No, it'd be awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.